Let's do this. Okay, so what are we doing today? I am tackling the second half of my book, Acid and Steel. Acid, as you know, is written. It's in playtestable form. I'm getting feedback on that right now. So, aside from the edit draft of that, where we're putting in any changes that wind up being good enough to change, we're pretty much just done with that. And of course, the whole book is going to go through a polish. What do you call it, stage that's I'm gonna add a lot of value to them. But as far as the raw writing, the initial draft of Acid is done. I got stuck on the lores for a while. Those were kind of frustrating, but I did finally actually complete them. So what I did was take myself a little break, drown myself in some cool robot media. I watched Armitage, and I read a bunch of Battle Angel Alita and a bunch of stuff like that. And I got back into working on the second half of the book. So, very briefly, the first half of the book was my answer to the Manual of Exalted Powers Infernals from the Exalted 2nd Edition. I really loved that game. I really felt like it revitalized the game line for me and did a bunch of new, interesting things. Was it perfect? No. No, there's. You can very easily find critiques of it online, especially the first few chapters. The lore chapters were very rough, and it was a gross out book, for better or worse. And White Wolf did a bunch of gross out books back then. They did Ghouls was a bit of a gross out book. A lot of the werewolf lines, like Pentex, was a total gross out book. Black Spiral Dancers was a gross out book. So it's not like they were strangers to like hyper edgy content, right? And you saw some of that in the Infernals book, because the Infernals are in Malpheus, which is like the World of Darkness hell. And again, in the original World of Darkness, Malpheus was a place you could go as well. I think it was, gosh, I want to say it was in the old Werewolf the Apocalypse games. Malpheus was like just like the worst of the worst. So that's what they were drawing off of, and it's pretty shocking, especially to a modern audience. But back in the day, I don't know, man. It didn't strike me as like particularly edgier than some of the stuff that was in Exalted already. I mean, you could look up like the Shoat of the Mire, if you really want some, or like anything that Mahasuchi does for like super edgy stuff that's like in the main line that I don't hear anyone talk about. But Infernals got really canceled because it was a gross out book. So I don't care about that stuff. I just skipped past it and ignored it, because the interesting stuff it did was all in the latter half of the book. The way the charms worked, all the different ways they characterized the different demon gods, the Yozis, with their power sets, I thought was really cool. You got a lot of character out of those powers, and it really, like, whenever you were playing it, you really felt them echoing through your character in a cool way. So it did a lot of great stuff. Again, imperfect implementation. It was extremely experimental, but in terms of a guy that played a lot of Exalted, like I had several multi-year campaigns under my belt at the time that Infernals was released. It totally changed my approach to future campaigns. It gave me a lot of new, interesting stuff to do. It really opened up the setting of Malpheus, that along with the Compass of Celestial Directions Malpheus, and the second Scroll of Glorious Divinity, which had all the demons and what have you in it. Like, there was a lot of cool stuff that got added into the game, and it made it very present in the game. It wasn't just some like defeated enemies of the Exalted who were never going to be dangerous again. Suddenly they had a plan and they were mobilizing, right? And that was great. It made them a much more active threat. And so no matter which direction I approached that from, I had cool new toys to play with, and it was a really vital part of re-energizing Exalted for me. It took it from I'll do that later to no, I have to do this now. So that's the energy I wanted to bring into mine. Acid energy, a little bit of gross out, not too much. Lots of body horror, lots of cool heavy metal energy. I loved the whole fallen primordial god angle that it had. I stole a lot of that stuff. I loved the idea of a chthonic demon city with its own like hierarchy of powers that is extremely alien and hostile to human beings that go there. So I added all that stuff into my hell, and I made a very vibrant setting out of it. So if you guys are backers, or if you are patrons, you can now get access to that document. Patronage is $2 a month, by the way. highly recommend it. You get all my stuff as soon as I write it. And if you are a backer, you're going to get the fancy PDF once it gets done. You're also probably going to get both that, because my most popular tier was that as a hardback with the core book as a hardback. So, um, so yeah, don't want to overpromise, underdeliver there. I'm really happy with the way Acid came out. So that's my brief little spat about what my goals were for that. So this part of the book, um, this is the steel part. This is the other half. So steel is my answer to the I think it's just called Exalted the Alchemicals. I've got a PDF of it here somewhere. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, Exalted the Alchemicals. So this is a beautiful book. This is an absolutely gorgeous tome. This is actually the end of the line for first edition. This is when they were experimenting with ideas that would later be implemented in second edition. So it has some amount of compatibility with second edition if you're willing to do a little bit of redesign with it. I actually ran this particular book before the second edition book for the Alchemicals came out. And unfortunately, the second edition book for the Alchemicals is nowhere near as stylish or inspiring as this one. And actually, I learned later, because I struggled a lot with this whenever I initially grabbed it and I bounced off of it. And then I came back to it and found stuff I was able to work with. But every single time that I went into these chapters, like the lore chapters, I would get about, let me see where I can find it. There's a particular picture, and every time I see it, yep, right there. That is the gatekeeper. Once I got to her, I knew I was about to get so bored that I wasn't going to be able to read anymore. I slept through almost everything in these chapters. Anything that wasn't a game mechanic, like this stuff was pretty cool. You know, I could use this immediately even in second edition games. Um, but any of this stuff, I would very rapidly be like, oh, okay, all right. I like the elemental poles; they were pretty cool. And actually, I think the inside of the jacket, yeah, it has this really cool like breakdown of what Autothonia looks like. I will say the big ocean of oil that you will literally never need to go to is a huge wasted opportunity. I feel like this should be somewhere else. Also, the poles of lightning and steam feel very. What's the word I'm looking for here? They feel very. There's nothing to do here. You know, there's something to do in the pole of crystal. There feels like there should be something to do here in the pole of smoke or whatever. Is it small smoke? Yeah, pole of smoke. But like, man, I gotta tell you, I gotta break it down for you. These poles, lightning and steam, just feel like if you go here, you'll die. And both of these poles feel very empty of any meaningful thing to do, which is tragic. Most of the actual setting is in the gears here. It's the elemental pole of metal, and there's a little bit right here in crystal too. That's like their equivalent to the fate spiders and the Luma Fate. All right, Call to the Illuminated was pretty good as I recall. All right, so I learned later, after bouncing off this book several times, that there was actually a precursor to this entire book um, that was in, I want to say, Scavenger Sons. And its take was a lot more game friendly. It was, first of all, it wasn't an entire product trying to justify itself, so it just didn't have all of this, right? Um, and this what I found when I was reading this, I actually found a few things when I was reading this, but let me summarize really quickly the pitfalls of realizing this as completely as they did. Okay, because this is an extremely complete book. It has Alchemicals as a character option. It has all their robot powers, their artificial charms, or what they're called. It has the different nations, the different settings in there. It has the entirety of Autochthonia as an explorable, interactable area. Like it has magic. It has a whole campaign in the back of it. Like there's tons of stuff in this. There's artifacts, like robot artifacts. There's a huge breakdown. Like there's lore, obviously. There's huge breakdowns of like the whole setting. Tons and tons of information, and like I said, I bounced off this a lot. I loved the art. I loved the layout. And I loved elements of it. Like I liked the poles a lot. I liked the idea of their society, although and like some things like the conduit tapping table, this is great. You find a conduit, you tap it, you don't know what's going to be in it, right? and those have different effects. That's wonderful. It's extremely usable, extremely gameable. Um, but if you scoot down, let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, to the nations, brother, these get boring quickly. Like, look at all this, dear Lord, that's a lot, you know. And it's just like on and on and on. There's so many different nations. Like, I'm never going to use all these. And there's some beautiful art. Like, that looks really cool. These guys, nowhere in the fluff. They're just a cool piece of art. Very evocative, doesn't connect with anything, you know? Um, this stuff was really boring. I got to tell you, I could not get past this. This was the Great Wall of learning about Autothonia. Every time it's just like, oh my god, this is so boring. And it really is just a description of all of their caste systems and all the stuff they're supposed to do. It's extremely dull. Hey, darling, how's it going? I'm glad you came out of there with clothes on.
Are you recording?
I am.
Like live streaming?
No. You look lovely, by the way.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to let you be eye candy for my future audience for a minute. Yeah, right? Right?
Yeah?
Yeah, right. My view count just like quadrupled, by the way. I went all the way to 20. Look at that. Look at that. But yeah, so these are unbelievably boring. And like, yeah, okay, I guess I might sometime in a game write a plot line about the meticulous surgeons of the body electric and all of their intrigues. But this is both too much and not enough for them. It really is like, here's a whole bunch of nothing. So it's extremely realized, right? And in some ways, that development increases the interest in the setting. Like, look at this dude. This guy looks rad. You know, look at this wonderful piece of fiction here. It really, there's a lot of wonderfully dynamic fiction in this. I highly recommend reading those bits. Um, you get look at this great art. You know, there's all these interesting little tidbits here and there. Um, all the character creation, and it's a very deep, richly detailed thing, you know. And I think whenever I was handed this physical book by a GM, they were like, "Hey, make a character." The promise of this and the promise of Exalted in general is very plug and play, right? It should be like, I have an idea, I want to make a guy kind of like this, and it really should be you choose your splat, right? It gives you some powers, and then you get your charms. So, and that's kind of what we did. Like, I thought this guy was cool, so I was like, I'll try a Jade case. That looks easy enough. We had a guy that was a Star Metal. We had a Soul Steel guy, you know. And I was like, oh, all right. So this is where all your powers are, right? Cool. So I was like, okay, let's get some charms. So when you do this in the core Exalted book, I've never had a core book fail to do all the stuff the charms should do. In terms of a power set, the solar charms are brilliant, right? Um, they're attached to your skills, so right away you can kind of tell what you're gonna get out of the powers. If you get a sword power, it makes you good with a sword, right? Like the excellencies are like, you're better with swords, hooray! You know, and every excellency-esque charm in the other editions works the same way. You're just kind of generally better with swords. And then there's, you can throw your sword, you can shoot energy beams out of your sword, you have a perfect indestructible parry that you can parry anything. You can cut through metal. Um, with your mega sword, you can hit somebody a whole bunch of times. You know, like on and on. Like, you get better at sword, and the powers do a good job. They're tiered and linked together, and they do a really good job of never quite. They give you a toolkit of options, right? Depending on how much you want to invest in a given swordiness, and like different situations you could find yourself in with a sword, and they expand on each other in a way that like broadens and deepens your power as you invest more into it. So if you just want to be capable with the sword, maybe you take an attack and a defense with the sword, and then you're done, right? Excellency, attack, defense. I mean, that is 30% of your charms, but now you're very capable with the sword. You still have 7 charms out of your 10, you know, to maybe you're a diplomat primarily, or a ninja or something, you know, and you could put the majority of your charms towards that. All the different cases do a really logical, for the most part, breakdown of what skills are associated with your competencies. The Solars aren't perfect at this. I think that the other types of Exalt maybe have a little more... Like, the Dawn case always was awkward because you had 5 different kinds of ways to do the same thing, which was fight people, right? and one of them was fighting whole armies at the same time, so not immediately useful for most campaigns. You had like, swords, and then you had bows and throwing things, and oh gosh, what was the other one? There was war, and there was one more that they did. I can't remember the last one. Oh, it's gonna drive me. Oh, brawl. It was martial arts or kung fu. Um, so yeah, you could do fisticuffs, and like it, so that didn't work super well. But okay, that was sort of an emergent problem that they just didn't think about as they were putting the game together, that they kept in like every edition. but but um, but aside from a little bit of awkwardness here and there with the skills, generally you could make the guy you wanted. If you were a Dawn case and you wanted to fight, well, maybe you could fight with several different kinds of magic weapons, or you were good in a war and with a sword, right? And then you got five other skills that you could also put charms in really easily. So as a solar, you were super versatile. You got a ton of charms starting off. Your power level was really high. If they changed the survivability a little bit, it would have been perfect. The survivability was super low in Exalted Second Edition. Uh, Third, I hear, has fixed that problem, but I don't care to learn it. But the point is that there was a real plug and play energy with Solar Exalted that worked really well. So, and that was just like you choose your guy, right? And then you go to get your charms. Okay, so right away with charms, they start you out on hard mode uh, with panoplies, submodules, and arrays. Now, they have these in the core book too, right? So they don't have submodules in so much. What they have is charm trees. So you'll have weaker versions that you need to prerequisite for stronger versions. But the strength of that is that you start off with some core competencies that kind of have limited but interesting powers, and then you expand. You can deepen or broaden depending on whether you want to go laterally or vertically within a charm tree effectively. And that's not exactly right. Like you kind of have to go all over the place with some of them. But for the most part, that general principle holds true. So it's like, okay, I can balance well. Now I can jump really high. Now I can do spider climbing like Spider-Man, you know? Now I can like jump so fast or jump so fast and far I can like fly almost. And like, so that's like a logical progression of power, right? And submodules aren't that. So your charms aren't like magic tricks you learn in this. They are literal mechanical devices you install in yourself, and you need charm slots to put them in. So right away you have this break between like just getting more powerful in this kind of this organic fashion, growing out from smaller power to larger power. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You have a certain amount of slots total, and then you fill them with charms, but you can have more charms than your slots. And what you do is you go back to base and you move the charms around. And if you put multiple charms together in an array, it's the same thing as a combo. A combo is you can only use one charm at a time generally, but if you combo them, you can use every charm in a combo together. That's again a simplification, but that's how it works, and that makes sense, right? That you would have like several that you could like link together. So an array is like that, except you have to fully install an array or uninstall an array. So if you have a charm, which again is a device, and you've installed it on yourself, and you want to junction it into an array, that is a permanent change to the charm itself. It is now in a combo. You can't use it without that array unless you get another version of that charm, another physical object. So right away, there's this whole other dimension that you have to consider from character generation, and this is what they start talking to you about. And the submodules change those individual charms by adding different options to them. So that's super complicated. Like, there's a lot going on there, right? Yeah, so this is how I felt after trying to read through this and understand it as a brand new player. I was not in good shape here. So here's the charms themselves. So another problem that I had immediately was the naming convention uh, really prioritized the language and like the floweriness of the language over any kind of utility. Transitory augmentation of attribute does not communicate anything to me on a first read through. Like, as an absolutely raw player who had never played Exalted before, I had no idea what any of that shit meant. Like, it's super not clear what this is supposed to do, right? And then you get these little things, and it's like, oh, this should be helpful. Oh, it isn't. I guess transitory means it only happens for a minute, and sustain means it keeps happening. Okay, but then okay, so you get it, right? You get it. But then within the actual uh, like text of the charm, it tells you that this is multiple different things. Like, for example, to get the sustained augmentation of stamina, it might be flesh replaced with organic metal alloys, or ball bearing joints and higher functioning motor skills for dexterity, or artificial muscles for strength. Okay, so conceptually, an alchemical already has all that stuff. They're robots. Like, you're not a person when you're playing an alchemical exalt. You're like a robot. And like, they kind of look like people, like they're shaped like a person, but they're not a person. They are a robot. They already have ball bearing joints and like mechanical muscles and all that stuff. So this is kind of like a weird, it's really conceptually murky. It's like, okay, so it gives you something, but it's not super clear what it gives you. And that the game effect is that it just gives you a plus to that stat. But it's not clear. Like, okay, so uh, this. Oh, gosh. I'm trying to remember exactly how this works. Yeah, you receive an additional dot in an attribute considered part of your natural rating. And the maximum rating of that increases by one dot. So this is one of those things where if you are designing a character like you would in a third edition Dungeons and Dragons, and you already are kind of a master of making characters, and you're like, oh, I could have dexterity 6. That could really increase a lot of my stats. That's a great thing to have. Like, okay, yes, but it gives you another dot in it. So this is a game in which you have between 1 and 5 dots of every attribute whenever you start making a character. So it's super not clear whether or not those 5 dots you could naturally get without this charm are like a version of these things being installed on your already 100% artificial body. Because it's not like you're doing squats, right? And getting stronger leg muscles. You are built with giant swollen muscles. Like, if you're gonna be this guy, they built you this way, right? You emerge sticky from the vats with the giant robot muscles. So this guy probably has sustained augmentation of strength. But like, does that mean his strength is 5 or 6? Like, if I built him with strength 4, which is stronger than almost any person alive, and I gave him sustained augmentation of strength, it would be the same thing as starting him with strength 5, which I could also do. Right? So the winning move, obviously, to get like a little more, to get the actual effect of that charm, is to build your guy with strength 5 already as an attribute, and then install that charm so you can go to 6. So you can do impossible feats of strength. But that's really, like, you have to have a very high level understanding of how Exalted works and how its attributes and abilities and whatnot break down before sustained. And this is one of their core excellency charms, by the way, before this one makes any sense to you. And even then, it's really conceptually murky because, like, again, you don't get stronger by lifting heavy things like a person would. You are built as strong as you're going to be, and they augment you later. So this is really conceptually murky. This is the second charm, guys, right? So it's got a weird name, which makes it kind of unapproachable, and it has an incredibly niche use to get the advantage out of it. That's a core charm, right? Now, they also really have a there's cool stuff in this charm set. I don't want to act like this is all garbage, but look at the first ones you see here. Tactical Analysis Ingram. What? Okay, so the charms, as I said before, are robot parts you install into yourself, right? So, like, okay, all right, cool. I could like have like robot wings, all right, or a laser on my arm. Cool, got it. I can install armor on myself. This is all stuff you can do. There's a charm in here which just turns your eye into a little eye robot that can crawl out of your face and spy around. That's great stuff, right? That's cool robot-y stuff. There's one that gives you the little RoboCop fist spike, you know? Awesome. Really nifty stuff. But like tactical analysis engram, what is an engram? Like I don't know. I know what tactical analysis means, so I guess this is like a robot readout. And then you have to kind of read the text of the charm to be like, okay, it's metallic nodules. They extend into my brain. All right. Um, they store a vast array of strategic patterns. What is a strategic pattern? Unit and combat profiles and interpolative simulation engines. What does that mean? That allow for intuitive conjecture on the capabilities of unknown opponents. All right, so here's the actual thing it does. When you activate it, you get stuff. You can figure out the dot ratings of things. This is one of this is a classic White Wolfism. It's never clear how much system transparency there is in a White Wolf game. A lot of times, I would give this information to the players, so I didn't have to worry about like having them kind of calculate stuff without full information, and we would speed up play a lot, right? Like, oh, they can learn the target's rating in wits or martial arts. Um, uh, I can learn the specialties. That's really not very useful, right? Like he's either a badass or he isn't. Their base initiative, their wound penalty. Again, a lot of this stuff they're gonna know, so it's not clear what this charm is actually giving you. The statistics of one weapon that the alchemical has seen the target use. The statistics of an object qualifying as armor shield, the function of one direct combative alchemical charm installed on the target that is outwardly visible. So here's the thing, okay? The information, this is completely superfluous, right? All of these things tell you what they look like, right? And all of the alchemicals have access to all of them. This information is already available to you by looking at the target with your normal eyes. So this charm doesn't do anything, but I'm willing to bet it's at the core of. Oh no, it just sucks. Okay, you could totally ignore this. This is wasted word count. Yeah, so it just doesn't do anything. It gives you information you should have as a player. So yeah, there's so many of these. And okay, so here's the first real complaint I had about it is there's no plug and play, right? I think I've made that very clear. And the second one is all right, and this charm set they have constantly trips over itself, right? They have powers that, as we just described, don't do anything, and then they have powers that are perfect replacements for other powers. Like, let me yeah, so these are all extremely boring versions of Go Faster. Another thing they do, let me that second point. So they have charms that make you faster and make you allow you to move in different like dimensions, and they also have like just straight up Doc Ock tentacles that you can get and walk around with. And obviously, you'd always go with the Doc Ock tentacles, right? They give you more. And the charm set constantly trips over itself like that. A, and B, a lot of these are just versions of go faster, be stronger, right? And not in particularly interesting or novel ways. So, yeah, polymodal joint bearings, anticipatory simulation processor. There's so much here where it's like, listen to these awesome robot power names that we find. Hyperdexterous tentacle apparatus. There's the tentacles. Multi-limb frame. Integrated arsenal upgrade. So as I recall, this one just lets you have a like weapon in your body that you can snap out, and it's not particularly useful. Yeah, there's so many powers. So again, I don't want to poo poo these charms super much. Like the chemical fog generator. Okay, that's cool. Electrification onslaught dynamo. This electrifies your stuff. That's very robot-y. Okay, now we're getting into some cool stuff. The transcendental multimodal weapon matrix is nah. You get like you make better versions of weapons inside your body, but okay. And the biggest thing with this is like it really gets in its own way a lot. It's over designed and under play tested to the point where it's really clear that this wasn't given to newer groups. It wasn't given to groups that were and like think of the cognitive load as a GM for trying to put one of these guys together to fight your party. It's not gonna work, guy. Like, because you can't, and this is important because RPG books are cookbooks, right? I need to be able to look at this beautiful piece of design here, and this is game design we're looking at. This little infographic here is, I guess, this is what this is. This little tree. This should immediately tell me what ranged combat charms my alchemical NPC can use and like to fight the solars that are bearing down on them. I should be able to flip to this page and look at this and be like, okay, so this guy is like the master of ranged combat. So clearly he's going to use his aim calibrating sensors. That's going to make him aim better. Cool. I should have an idea of how that works in a really brief and easy way. And he's going to use, let's see, Essence Pulse Cannon and the Pulse Web Entanglement Burst. So that's nice, right? I can kind of get a vibe for what that does. All right, he calibrates his aim. He shoots them with his like robot cannon, and then it entangles them in like some kind of weird plasma net. Fair enough, fair enough. Let's check out what all that stuff does real quick. Where's aim calibrating sensors? Here we go. All right, that's a really dense chunk of text. What does it do? Okay, slight metal bulge. Here we go. When activated, it measures and compensates for wind. I don't know what that does mechanically. Okay, here we go. For every mote spent, you can remove a die of environmental penalties. Okay. Does not overcome wound penalties. Okay, so this just lets me get through penalties. So if there's, okay, that's cool. So there we go. So we're going to reduce the penalties to 0. And let's scoot on down. I think I saw the Essence Pulse Cannon down here, which I think is this thing, unless he's throwing up through his hand. I don't know. Yeah. Let's see what this one does. Blah, 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 blah. There's all kinds of ways they can manifest. Alright, with Arm with Essence, an automatic action of 2 motes, Electric Hum, Jewels Glow, Flickering Power, blah, blah, blah. Essence Pulse Cannon is a magical weapon. Here we go. So this is the first relevant piece of information, and it's like 2 paragraphs in, and it's very dense, right? And then there's all different kinds of ways you can make it work. Like, oh dear lord, what? There's a whole page of these? Oh my god. Let's scoot down and see if maybe the Pulse Web Entanglement Burst clarifies this and makes it easier. Alright, here we go. Compressed nets of essence, that's what we want. Nets are launched, blah blah blah. Guidance race submodule. Oh boy, there's a submodule. Oh. Where's that at? And immediately it's like you're so lost in the sauce. Like this is just not optimized, right? So even being as charitable as I can to it, you simply cannot run this off the page. By the way, let's look at my game to give you an idea of the contrast and what I expect here. So let's say I wanted to do Path of the Bullet to shoot them. Let's give them a kick-ass master level gun. Hand to cannon sutra. Oh look, I've got things you can do too. So right away, I know that this is a mudra, so they don't, and I know what kind of stuff they need for it. They need Arma and Awakened Chakra. I know how much it costs. Here we go. Oh, look at this. Whenever you transform devoured metal into a weapon, it can transform your arm into a mighty weapon. You can launch 3 powerful new attacks. Alright, cool. So, oh, enhances Bullet Eater Sutra. Guess where that is? In the same damn page. Alright, so yeah, see, like right away, it's like, okay, what does this do? You gain the ability to bite and eat metal. Alright. There we go. You may expel unjust amount form of a weapon or of similar complexity, blah, blah, blah. Every product to 1 metal resource. Okay. With this mighty weapon, you can launch 3 powerful new attacks. Okay. You must pay the product cost listed in... Okay, here we go. Cool. So if I have eaten some metal, which I could just say I did before the thing happened, ate several metal resources here, I can make a cool new gun. So I'll shoot them with the Pranic Fury Beam. Boop, there's its stats. Right? There's the cost, There's the stat. Here's a brief description of what it does. Also, notice this space here between the paragraphs, so the ideas clearly are on the page and you can just see them. All right, let's compare again, shall we? Oh, oh no. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. No, 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 no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. You see what I mean? There's no optimization here. It's just an absolute garble mess. So, as a GM, I cannot use this information. It's not optimized. As a player, I have to spend a long time looking through all of these and weighing the different options. And I have to make certain I'm using the different charms properly, as we described, or else I'm not actually getting anything out of them. And I have to make sure that the charms actually do something worthwhile. And although this art looks really good, is that this? Is that this? I think it's hundredfold strafing methodology, which is a cool name for a charm, but methodology is not a robot part, right? It all it does is upgrade your repeating pneumatic bow, right? So it's like I guess it makes you shoot out of your arm backwards. That's a really awkward way to aim, but okay. It's not even the weird. Like I mean, they did this in the Transformers movie, so I'm not gonna knock it too bad. But do you see what I mean, guys? Uh, yeah, like 90-degree arc. What is going on with this? Yeah, you fire a constant stream of essence darts that remain in existence until the end of the turn. Remain in existence. So you summon magical bolts of metal that only last long enough to shoot them. You know what else only lasts long enough for me to shoot? A bullet. I think what they didn't want you to have infinite metal, and they were like, we can't have them track ammo or resources, so they can make metal out of their rejuvenating magic, but they can't keep the metal because otherwise they'll get too much metal. I do like her gear head. I think that's great. I don't think you can actually have that as an exalt, but I think that looks nifty. Actually, I really like this artist quite a bit. I forget which one it is, but this is just fantastic. Like that's breathtaking work. Um, oh gosh, yeah. Here we go. The darts have a range. You can run yards. You can cut down an entire patch of jungle, sawing through a copse of ancient trees in the blink of an eye. Oh man, yeah. That's another thing these charms do a lot. They get really tortured, where it's like you can shoot a whole bunch of cool metal bullets, but you can't have metal, and we're not gonna make you track bullets. You make them out of essence, and they are metal, but then they go away. And it's just like, I get what you're trying to do, boyos, but I'm cool with just tracking ammo. I think everybody is kind of. So, or, if you were crazy, you could abstract tracking it into resources that are like an abstraction that you could easily track, like I did my game right there. I solved so many of these problems, guys. But again, I would not have solved these problems if I had not encountered them here. So, what is my point with all of this? Okay, what is my point with all of this? Let's get to the point. Let's get to the point. All right, so the point. Very basically, this is a cool game in theory. The cover is cool, the art is cool, the layout is cool, the ideas are cool. The execution is a disaster, right? This game, and this is very common with White Wolf, this game promises the same level of approachability and plug and playability as the core Exalted game, which, as discussed, did a pretty decent job of it. It's not perfect, but you could reasonably, do what it said on the tin. I want to be a guy with a sword. You can make a guy with a sword, and that's a competent character, right? If you are a master of gaming the system, you could be a far more efficient and capable guy with a sword, but it wasn't necessary to play the game in an approachable, fun way. This this charm set fights you, right? And it's not just the charm set, it's everything, right? The game is constantly battling itself and falling over itself. And it's because all of their design is these big, elaborate, self contained exceptions instead of having a good set of core principles to be able to fall back on. And part of that is because this was so daring and different than the rest of the Exalted line. This idea of these modular charms was very cool. These mechanical beings being like artificial Exalted was cool. Their awesome super communist steampunk world was a really cool setting. All of these were really bold ideas. I don't want to undersell them. The promise of them is great. The execution of them was a goddamned mess. Um, just an absolute disaster. Let me scoot down here. There's more disasters. Like, and it got murkier the further you went into it, right? Like, you could have a familiar, which you could have a familiar in Exalted, you know? It's like a panther or a giant intelligent wasp. And here we have a robot-ish panther with wings, I guess, and a wasp, except it's a badnik from Sonic 2. And it's just like, okay, can we maybe be a little more creative than that? Like, I just feel like we're reskinning stuff that already exists in Exalted and not really doing anything differently. Yeah, see? Burp. And they also have this, which is this huge wall of text about how the physical bodies of the robot Exalted work. And it's in page 74. Which, is that leading into them? I think it is. I think we're not quite... Yeah, okay. Because splats are right after this. That's actually a reasonable place for it. It's awkward, but it's not insane, right? But yeah, this game supplement was an absolute mess. It was a disaster. And it does not get better as you go deeper into it, I'm afraid. As I said, this isn't irredeemable. I did actually play this on a few occasions, but Mind Ripping Probe was great, by the way. Um, but yeah, it needs more usability. The setting also trips over itself a lot. While reading the setting, I consistently got the impression that the White Wolf Riders thought that as long as you had infinite food and water, a Soviet style communist society would endure for thousands of years. Um, that's it wouldn't, guys. Even in a fantasy world, there are gigantic problems to centralizing control. Um, I and they don't really. It's fine to not have any understanding of that and just to have like a fantasy, right? Like fantasy medieval universes probably wouldn't last for thousands of years either. Like that's not, like, clearly they would change somehow. It's not like that's unprecedented, but man, if you like, it's interesting to explore the challenges of that, right? In ways that are actually that resonate with how human beings work and the central ideas of how communism works. Like there's cool stuff to be had there, right? But you have to have an understanding of what its like second and third order consequences are, and at least be able to set up the setting in a way that like those consequences can play out as you engage with it. They have no concept of that. This sucks, by the way. This is just garbage. I hate this. I'm not even going to look at that anymore. Oh, by the way, they have robot magic. Um, just in case you wanted to have robot magic, they've got it. I don't. I really don't. Like, when for the robots, I want this. I don't want them to have sorcery, But they do, and they treat their robot world as though it's animistic sometimes, and mechanical sometimes. And the conceptual friction between those things is really awkward. So, like I said, the setting is also a mess. Um, oh god, I do like these guys. Again, conceptually, they're like robot gods, but again, you immediately run into this sort of awkwardness where it's like they have to make exceptions to how their spirits work. Because a spirit's like an immaterial, intangible thing that can become material, right? In the universe of creation. And they're just robots, which is fine. You could leave it at that. But they have to say, well, actually they're spirits, but there's no chasm of the immaterial here. So they have this like tortured logic for why they're just robots when you could just make them robots. Like you could just say that's how it works here. You don't have to have this tormented are they or aren't they, but are they? But like the logic keeps twisting and untwisting itself, when you could be much more direct with what you wanted, which is we just want them to be robots. Except they don't want that sometimes. Sometimes they want them to be immaterial, but not really. And it's just like, gosh, guys, really? Just really? I don't know. This kind of twisting and untwisting was very necessary. Whenever we were in the world of darkness and you had to like make a believable human world, and then on top of that you had weird magical spirits that were like invisible and influencing things. Sure, okay, that kind of like immateriality was necessary, but in the world of Exalted, why do we need that? It's like every grain of rice has a small god. That's dumb. That's a dumb aspect of the setting. They just did Tron there. I hate that too. So I guess my point here with all of this is that in thinking about what I will do, I'm looking at what inspired what I'm doing. Right? I did this with the Infernals too. I didn't really make a video about it, but I thought about like not just what was inspirational about this and what they did right and wrong, but also like what was this game promising to be? When you pick up a game, it really does give you a promise, right? And sometimes the promise is you can be like a Bronze Age sword and sandals superhero with the powers of the gods, right? And if you make good on that promise, even if imperfectly, I'm going to give your game a passing grade, right? I've never had a problem-free version of Exalted, but I've ran multiple year-long and multi-year-long campaigns with all but the third edition, which I bounced off of really hard. However, other people have done Exalted third edition. It does do what it says on the tin. It is a lot of the problems I'm describing to you now with that non-optimizability. That's a consistent problem with White Wolf writing. Um, but you can still run games with that, right? I don't feel like the this Alchemicals book lived up to its promise. It had a promise of making those cool robot characters with the same ease or were comparable ease to the way you could do it with the Solar Exalts. It promised a massive, weird new setting, and its inconsistencies and awkwardness made that really not possible. Combined with the limited gameability of the elements it gave you. Ugh, excuse me. Like, it gave you a little bit of stats here and there, but it really did not give you anything near like a setting. Again, my game gives you setting. My game gives you lots of setting in the best way that you could possibly get setting. Well, actually, I've given you setting in two different ways. I have domains in which you can actually interact with the setting in a meaningful, if somewhat abstract way. And then I also have the bestiary, which is all kinds of cool monsters. And notice that it's a complete bestiary with tons and tons of stuff, including titans. Um, God, I even give you vehicles. They didn't give you any vehicles. All right, I'm trying to scoot down to... Oh, I gave you a bunch of artifacts as well. Damn, buy my game. Here we go. But here, this was my early take on an alchemical Autothonia-S place. And you'll notice that to integrate the weird secret masters here, there are secret plots, you know? There's a brief, usable one-page description of the setting. Notice how much easier that is to read? And you really aren't losing anything here. Um, I have a master encounter list for going there. I have its many dooms, like the really big-time bad guys, armies and demon gods and what have you. Um, and then I have, oh, look at this. There's different societies that you might encounter and what they're about. Notice how instead of pages and pages of unreadable text, I just give you the kind of society is, what their leader's name is, and then a little bit about how they operate that is usable in a game. And you could also interact with this with the social rules in my game. Isn't that amazing? It's just really easy, you know? What kind of fields are you going to encounter? What are the places that you're going to move between? What are some names that the NPCs might have, or some quirks or motives? There we go. Nice big chunky list. And by the way, all these things have a sort of unified culture that emerges from them if you put them together. What are some weird things you can only get here? Oh, look, archaeotech trinkets. Those are nifty. You might want to grab one of those. Um, What are some big advantages that your powerful NPCs might have? You know, what are some good plots that you can put into your game? Look at these. They have a list of NPCs. They have a premise. They've got hooks to bring you into them. They've got all kinds of things that you can just kind of sprinkle in. Like, there's nothing approaching this level of usability anywhere in the Autochthonians except for this, where it's a bunch of linear things that happen over the course of a campaign. Like, see all this? All this? None of this is going to happen in your campaign. Not in a way that's meaningful for the players, right? It's just this enormous, insane thing that happens, and it's just constantly setting redefiningly gigantic things happening everywhere. And, like, the Juggernaut wakes up and goes on a rampage. I mean, like, this stuff is just so tremendous that it's insane. And, like, oh yeah, there's the Kukla. The Kukla wakes up. The unkillable super dragon that's like a mini elemental dragon. Yeah, good luck with defeating the Kukla. You literally have to get a plot device uh, to beat it. And there's so many parts of this that are just like, then a plot device happens. Then another plot device happens. Then another plot device happens. It's just this inflexible, awkward, impossible to use thing. This is kind of cool. I like this one, the quest for the source. Again, though, it's in acts, which is not how a game works. Instead of having elements and events, you have like a story you're telling. It's all just turgid. There's Tamuts. I just cannot get into it. Another plot device, the Eye of Autothonia. It's just, ugh. And then this will happen, and then that will happen. God, we're only now to Act 2. Oh my god. Then your players will go to Autothonia. Could they get there before? Yes. Can they leave? Well, not until the plot says they can. That's look how dense. Look how dense all of this is. It's so, again, it's rigid, you know. Act 3, the end of the Second Age. This is the apocalypse, by the way. This ends in destroying the setting, which, you don't have to go. I know it's Exalted, man, but you don't have to go that big. Like, can you give us something a little more usable, please? Oh, goodness. Oh, wait, no. This is the Engines of Extinction. Yeah, okay. I think there's 3 different end-of-the-world plot lines here. Yeah, this is the one that I played through with my friends way back in the day. This is where the First and Forsaken Lion kind of uses the alchemical invasion to just destroy the world. And I think there is a scene in here where he, as the big bad guy, is just taken out by his girlfriend. I think she just kills him. Yeah, there we go. Boom. Closing the seal. I do like their index that I might steal. Do 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 do. So yeah, what was the promise of this game? It promised to be playable, as intuitively and as interestingly as the Solars were. It failed. I'm pretty sure the second edition did a pretty decent job of salvaging that. Although, again, it really does require an understanding of the deeper, like, consequentiality of the mechanics of Exalted to really play an alchemical, which is suboptimal for me. I don't feel like that the alchemical should be some advanced play option that only like super players can do. I feel like you should be able to make a robot, right? They're not super well integrated with the setting. Exalted itself has the problem that it is a kung fu game where kung fu, like magic kung fu, and your magical powers are different things. So that's kind of awkward in general. It does have the benefit of making kung fu available to everybody, but it's its own thing. It doesn't interact with your normal charms at all. And the robots do that too, so that's really awkward. Yes, it promised a setting and it promised an adventure. I could have lived without the adventures. I would have preferred this product to simply be smaller and not have those adventures in there, because I don't think anyone used them. Even amongst White Wolf fans, those are not well-loved adventures. Because, again, Scavenger Sons did a version of them which was much more usable. And this is just 3 apocalypse scenarios, which means you will get one of those 3 ever. it was just really frustrating. Um, yeah, I would have preferred more usable setting. There's a few things I like the essence conduits, just a couple of like the dangers you can use. But like overall, did this thing promise more than it could possibly deliver? I don't think so. I mean, Exalted had already delivered, right? It had already delivered a perfectly usable game with a perfectly usable setting. You know, they could have done the same thing here, and they didn't. As a matter of fact, there was really no reason to turn this into an adjunct to Exalted, except they were using it to kind of cap off the line. Um, so yeah, end of the day, what am I taking away from this? So I want to fulfill the promise. I feel like I fulfilled the promise of the Infernals with the acid half of the book, right? Rock and roll hell, heroes with the powers of the fallen titans and a fully usable demon setting, like with cool surreal and human hostile like environments. Awesome, right? Very an animistic universe of broken, mutilated monster gods. Did it, nailed it, right? So with this one, I really like the setting of Autochthonia. I like that he's a big robot planet, like like in Transformers. I think that's cool. I think the claustrophobic factory world is a really cool setting. I want to do that. I like the weirdnesses of it. I like its weird robot denizens. I really like the super communists. I think that I want to explore their collectivist philosophy in a way that's a little more consequential and a little more rich. I think being a hero of a collectivist society means something a little bit different. And in defense of this book, they actually do give you some interesting stuff with that. Like being a collectivist hero means something, and it's different and distinct and interesting. And I want to continue that. I want to continue the premise of playing a cool robot and their struggle between their human capacity for like connection and empathy and their robotic capacity to transcend the human and become creatures of like robotic logic and transcendent processing. I think that's fascinating. I definitely like the idea that you install your robot powers. I've already got a version of that. Of course, I'm going to integrate it a lot better with the Kung Fu, but that's neither here nor there. Um, what else? So setting, yes, and setting has to be usable. So that shouldn't be too terribly difficult. Um, Gosh, what else? I really, I want that plug and play. I want you to be able to very intuitively and quickly build a robot, and I don't necessarily think that the powers are fated to get in their own way. I think with a little bit of thoughtfulness and design, I can design the paradigms such as that there's not a lot of redundancy where there's a clear best option, and I can also design them such as that they kind of have a sense of progression while still offering a complete tactical toolkit. Um, so yeah, I think those are my takeaways for this. Now I've already begun writing on steel, so there is some stuff done. Let's see here. Where are we? Not as much for acid. So acid, in its totality, as it stands, I believe is 157 pages. Yeah, look at that. So if you look at steel, though, here we go. Yeah, so it's somewhere in the neighborhood. Yeah, of 157 pages. So the remaining pages are all steel, and you can see here that I've got the nations and I've got their splats coupled with the nations, which I think was the right thing to do. Um, I've got some robot powers here. I have designed many, many, many of these. They're not done. There are, gosh, I want to say there's 4 different paradigms, and some of them, as you can see here, um, are missing chunks. Some of these I know what they're going to do. Some of them, like the bullet train chassis, I'm probably just going to completely get rid of that. I'm probably going to do something else there, you know? Same thing with this. There's a lot of just, I've named the powers, and then this one I think I'm going to have to completely change. Any ones that are in red. Um, And some of them have design, and some of them do not. Yeah, limb replacing, gravity inversion. So any of the ones that are red like this are probably ones that freestyle. Yeah, I'm probably gonna toss that too. Um, those are the ones that when I looked at the powers holistically, those are the ones that like, okay, this one is not gonna give me something that's tactically distinct enough. Oh, that's awkward. Thank you. Sorry, it's bedtime, everyone. It's been a very productive day, I think. So yeah, some of these are really cool and distinct, others not so much. I'm going to add more kung fu here. I've got two styles more or less done, and a third one that is designed on paper. I think I actually have the on paper design somewhere around here. I'll look it up later. I've got a bestiary. You'll notice I'm experimenting with some layouts here. I like that texturing on the pages. I've been trying different textures. I really like this one. I'm actually a huge fan of this. This looks really cool. But I can't replicate it on a master page yet, so I'm not sure exactly what to do with that. Gosh. You'll notice I don't have the setting stuff in here yet. So, bestiary is going to be one thing I'm going to do. Oh, I don't have any of the bestiary stats here. Oh, goodness. Did I not? Oh, goodness. That's not good. I should have had tons of bestiary stats. I may have to go and investigate that a little bit. Ooh. Yeah, there should be bestiary stats in these. Huh. 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 Hmm. Well, earlier versions had the bestiary stats. I'll look through some of my earlier versions here. Anyway, so you can see I've begun work, but before I get into, because I want to look through this, I want to be holistic. I want to read what I've written, and I want to have a roadmap towards writing the alchemicals correctly and thinking about what didn't work and what the promise was and what did work. That's gonna really help me when I'm going through the darkness of this mechanical underbelly to to figure out what needs to be in here. I gotta find that bestiary, and I'm also gonna have to make sure I'm adding in a take on how to do hex crawling within a three-dimensional clockwork world. So that's gonna be fun too. So yeah, I think that will deliver on this finally, where you can actually have a complete game within the boundaries of Bab el Keminar, my version of Autochthonia, and it will be satisfying, and you'll also be able to like blend the settings together in an organic way by either crashing Bab el Keminar into the world of Ashes and Ghosts, or by having them, otherwise cohabitate somehow. They get up there in some sort of flying contraption. I don't know, but yeah, I think that instead of having a bunch of here's how things happen at the end of it, I'm just going to give you enough setting and enough like little holes that rats can crawl through or out of. That the integration between these settings is going to be a little more apparent, and it won't immediately result in an apocalypse. Oh goodness gracious! I think this. How long have I been doing this? Is this over an hour now? Yeah, we're an hour and 3 minutes. Oh my lord. Okay. Well, thanks for hanging out with me, everyone. I wanted to make sure I was getting on here and kind of giving you an idea of where I was in the writing. I'm very proud of having Acid done. I think I really nailed it. Um, we'll see what the playtesters think. So far, the reception's been pretty positive, but it's only been out for about a week. So Steel's coming up next. We've got some Discordies that are extremely excited about that, and I'm hoping to really excite you with it. Whatever you get this in your hot little hands, this is going to be something that I want you to be able to game with for years to come. I don't want you to be looking back on this game like I'm looking back on the Alchemicals and saying, "Wow, they really screwed the pooch. This is a disaster." Let's avoid that. I don't want my work to live in infamy. All right, that's enough for tonight. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me. I will see you next time.